Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at a really powerful piece. It's a reflection, almost a poem, by Dr. Shangu Magadza called A Friendship Lost, When Discomfort Speaks Louder Than Love. And this isn't just an academic look. We're really trying to get inside the anatomy of a specific friendship's breakdown. Our mission, really, is to understand how a conversation about race went so wrong, leading to this profound sense of loss, using Dr. Magadza's own very personal account.
Exactly. What's so striking here is how the narrator isn't just telling a sad story. They're, analyzing the communication failure almost as it happens or in reflection. We're digging into what occurs when someone tries to be vulnerable, share something deep, and is met not with reception, but with,
Well,
defensiveness. We want to pinpoint those moments where things shifted.
right. From potential connection to self-protection and then ultimately the end of the friendship. Okay, so let's unpack it. Where did this specific final conversation begin?
The text says it kicked off with two questions from the friend. The first one was, have you ever experienced racism? And the narrator describes this. Pause. Like, where do you even start?
That pause says so much, doesn't it? It's the weight of a lifetime of experiences, the sheer effort needed to even begin to answer. But then, almost immediately, the second question comes, and it reveals this huge gap in understanding. The friend asks, what is racism?
And this is where the narrator has this, light bulb moment, but a really painful one. She realized her friend hadn't actually read the book she'd written on this very topic.
Where?
Or maybe didn't want to read it.
Yes. And that detail, the unread book, it's pretty damning, isn't it?
Why so damning, specifically? Yeah. Well, it highlights this imbalance.
Yeah.
Right? An imbalance of effort. The narrator had provided a resource, a way for the friend to learn independently. But instead, the friend seems to want the narrator to do the educational work right there, in the moment. It sort of sets up this dynamic where the friend controls the terms of engagement. It's asking for emotional labor on demand rather than investing the time to understand.
Okay, so the friend didn't engage with the conceptual stuff, the book. So where did they try to connect instead? The text says the conversation then shifted quite suddenly to the narrator's past.
Yeah, a pivot.
The friend starts asking about her life before she came to the UK, asking about her great aunt, the one she called Grandma, asking for the backstory.
Which can seem like genuine interest, right? Asking for personal history often signals engagement.
Sure.
But there's often an underlying expectation there. So the narrator opens up about some really vulnerable things from her past. And here's the crucial turning point. The friend gets upset, but not because of what the narrator went through. No. The friend gets upset because she didn't know about this history.
Okay, let's just sit with that for a second. That reaction, I didn't know. Why is that so destructive here?
Because it immediately flips the focus. True empathy, real listening, means holding space for someone else's pain, even when it's uncomfortable. But when the reaction is, oh, I feel bad because I wasn't aware of your suffering, you're making it about your own feelings, your own guilt, your self-image.
You're right. You're centering yourself.
Exactly. It's recentering. The friend prioritizes managing her own discomfort over actually hearing the narrator's pain. The speaker's trauma becomes about the listener's feelings.
And then it seems to get even more intense. The friend asks this question defensively, but you were almost fully formed when you came here. Why now? What's buried inside that why now?
Well, that question is packed. The narrator unpacks it brilliantly later, suggesting the subtext is something like, surely you'd already assimilated. Surely you'd let all that go by now. It points to this expectation of assimilation. The idea that if you move somewhere or if you're from a minority group, you should kind of shed your past, especially the painful parts, for the comfort of the people around you.
So the friend wasn't just asking about timing.
No, it seems like they were questioning the legitimacy of even bringing up that history in their present-day friendship. Like it didn't belong there.
An unspoken demand to just leave the past behind, that feels like a massive obstacle in a friendship.
Huge. And then the conversation shifts again from this kind of implied criticism to a direct accusation.
What was the accusation?
The friend accuses the narrator of turning them into someone who discriminates.
Whoa. Okay, so flipping it entirely.
Completely. It's a powerful defense mechanism. The narrator reflects, maybe by writing and talking about racism, she was inadvertently shining a light on her friend's own biases. And the friend's fear, perhaps, of being seen that way as discriminatory became more important than acknowledging the narrator's reality. Blame the messenger, essentially.
It feels like the narrator is just hitting a wall of deflection. And in her frustration, she asks these really sharp questions back. She asks, why are you centering yourself in this? Why does my pain become a wound on your skin? Why do you need to feel better instead of listening?
Hmm. Those questions just cut right to the heart of the breakdown, don't they? It lays the conflict bare.
Mm.
One person needs to be heard, needs their pain witnessed. The other needs immediate reassurance, needs to feel okay about themselves. The text shows us the moment the friend felt implicated or uncomfortable, they stopped being a friend listening and started being, well, a defendant protecting themselves.
And after that exchange, the end came really quickly, it seems. No real attempt to repair things.
And really not. It was swift and final. The friend literally says they'll never see eye to eye
Ooh.
and then stops taking the narrator's calls. The narrator even uses a specific term to describe the dynamic, noting the words white fragility seemed to echo in the room as your footsteps left it.
Okay, so the text itself brings in that term. How does it apply here based on common understanding of the term?
Well, if we look at how that term is generally defined, it points to exactly this kind of situation.
Mm.
A relatively low tolerance for racial stress leading to defensive reactions. Things like anger, shutting down, withdrawal, arguing.
Mhm.
Basically prioritizing one's own comfort and self-image over engaging with the uncomfortable reality of racism. The friend's actions seem to fit that pattern described in the text.
What makes this whole story even more poignant, just incredibly ironic, is who the narrator is. Dr. Shingu Magadza works professionally in this exact area.
Right.
She mentions her own professional tools, like the 6 stages framework, and her work on having difficult conversations about race. She even admits she feels she should have handled it better.
And that, for me, is maybe the deepest, most human insight in the whole piece. That 6 stages framework she mentions, it's designed precisely to navigate these incredibly difficult emotional moments, to keep dialogue open, to prevent the very kind of shutdown that happens.
Their job is literally to keep that door open.
Exactly. So the question arises, and you raised it implicitly.
Mm-hmm.
If she's the expert with the framework, why didn't it work? Did she fail to apply her own tools?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough question, but
It is. And the narrator confronts this directly. It's the tragic paradox. She knows the professional advice. Keep the door open, don't let it slam shut. But the piece shows us that gut-wrenching gap between knowing the strategy and living the reality. When it's your trauma being dismissed, when you're the one being accused, when the personal stakes are that high,
the framework can just evaporate.
it seems it can. Even for the expert, the raw human pain, the feeling of betrayal, it potentially overrode the professional skill set in that critical moment. It suggests the failure wasn't just the friend's defensiveness, but maybe also the narrator's understandable human inability to maintain that professional detachment while being personally wounded.
And so, despite everything, despite the expertise, the door slammed shut anyway.
Yes.
She sums it up with that devastatingly simple line: a friendship lost to racism.
And that line just hangs there, doesn't it? It underlines the real-world cost. The communication failed, perhaps not for lack of tools or knowledge, but because one person's need to feel comfortable, to maintain their self-image, created an insurmountable barrier. It's such a clear example of how prioritizing your own feelings over someone else's shared pain can just sever a connection permanently, even when an expert is involved.
So, taking all this in, this one specific painful story, what should we, the listeners, take away from it? Why does this particular loss matter beyond the two people involved?
I think it forces us to look at our own reactions, our own thresholds for discomfort. We like to think that if we just learn the right techniques, the right words like the 6 stages framework, we can navigate anything. But this story shows maybe technique isn't enough when the conversation touches on identity, on privilege, on deeply ingrained societal issues. It suggests that real communication in these moments requires something more fundamental. Humility, patience, the simple, hard willingness to listen to another's painful truth without immediately trying to fix it or defend ourselves.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we should probably circle back to those final questions the narrator leaves us with. They really build on everything we just talked about. They're questions for you listening now to maybe reflect on. What is your story? Who have you lost to racism? Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the difficult cost of discomfort.